If painting is something, painting is like a gesture on top of a gesture. When you're painting a painting, you're painting on top of the history of painting. The canvas is never empty. The canvas is full of your preconceived ideas of what painting is. So what I try to do is to try to find a voice that is more authentic to the idea of what could it mean to do painting in my cultural context on 2025. And how can I challenge these ideas? I don't want to do a painting that is an idea that was implanted into me. I want to find out what painting can be. My name is Frieda Toranzo Jaeger. I usually say that I use painting, but I'm actually a conceptual artist. So I use the medium of painting, let's say, to achieve those conceptual goals that I might or might not have. It's a practice where I think I really try to reflect on the idea of what painting can be outside the Western canon. I mean, one way that I do this is that I use embroidery within my paintings. And for me, that was a very important way of quite literally penetrating the Western canon with something else, with a craft that comes from somewhere else. And then therefore put it in a context where it's, let's say, okay, where are we going to start talking about this painting? Are we going to talk about it from the point of view of embroidery, of the genealogy of embroidery? Or are we going to talk about it from the Western canon and until now? So where are we going to locate that? I always wanted to be a philosopher, I guess. I studied philosophy for a while. But I don't know, verbal language, it never gave me what it promised it would give me. So I needed to escape. I do feel that for me, painting is a deeply philosophical process because everything is ontological, right? Why yellow and not blue? This is an ontological question because the promise of blue is not the same promise as yellow. And how do you interpret those promises? So I understood that the reflective process of painting really gave me the space that I wanted to be in, a conceptual space. If art is anything, if we could define art as anything, it would be the deepest act of self-reflection. And part of reflecting is to understand what is your relationship with these structures within you live in or that you interact with. Painting is not something that changes the present. Painting is something that can change our vision of that present in its historicity. At the beginning of my career, I worked a lot with cars. It's the symbol of industrial revolution. It's a great symbol for capitalism. It's a great symbol for masculinity, you know, all things that I like to investigate, I like to critique. For me, the interior of the car was like this psychological space of capitalism where our agency and privilege was really obvious, right? Like a car is being driven within the constraints of, you know, of car structures, roads, tires, and the type of car that you have, it's dependent on your privilege. And some people don't even have a car. So there's very little agency that you have. You have the agency to say, okay, where I'm gonna drive and maybe how fast or not, but the agency is limited. I was also really interested in the ontological shift of power between you driving the car and becoming an extension of you, of like almost like a strap-on of virility, of occupying space, to the change of when cars are gonna drive themselves. And then you become totally passive and enter like in a womb, like you're like a baby fetus, and then you enter a womb, and then this womb takes you anywhere or everywhere, and then you have very little control. And this is the same with AI, right? Like we are experiencing how the machine is gonna be in the middle, but not as a machine, but as an algorithm. For example, now in this very specific work, what I did is like I created a machine through AI, like a picture of a machine, because I think we are moving towards an algorithmic capitalism, where the algorithm is going to be in the center, right? Like the Anthropocene was, you know, the human in the middle, you know, and from there, everything else gets controlled. Well, now this is going to change. And I can see already how artificial intelligence is disempowering us slowly. Why? Because they are giving us data, so much data, that we cannot process. We simply don't have the capacity. So I am interested in this shift. How is power gonna work then? And also, why do we desire that future? Why? I was born and raised in Mexico, and I think I'm a bit reluctant of like telling my biography, because I think that my work tries to find within my singularities the universality that can apply for many people. So I think one of the important things of my context is that I do believe in Marxism, like I'm a Marxist always. And I think if I look at my personal cultural context, which is in Mexico, we can see that the most important, the most radical art was made when socialist ideas were at the highest. And that's like Frida Kahlo, Diego Rivera, muralism. I grew up here in Coyoacán in Mexico City. It's a very old neighborhood with a lot of houses and parks. Here is where Frida Kahlo's house is. Here is where Trotsky's house was. Now both museums. And for me, this is very important. This is a part of me. You know, I grew up here. This is a part of me. This is a part of my history. This is a part of how I learn how to be in this world. I think if you talk to Mexicans, they will be like, oh my God, that's so cheesy. Or, you know, sometimes in the 90s, there was like this idea that we have to separate ourselves from that kitsch past and become very intellectual or something like that. I think for me, I luckily never engaged in that idea. I do think like that I can see now the immense influence, radicality, and importance of those figures. So when I think about my context, muralism for me is very important because it is the point where the material reality of their ideology was the most important. Muralism was at one point like, okay, let's take art out of the bourgeoisie. And they did it. Where are these murals? They are in public institutions, they are in union buildings. And this is a movement that was concerned with their effectivity, right? I mean, we talk so much about the coloniality and global south and inclusivity, and this brought us nothing. No sustainable change, no social change where structures could be like fulfilled, not for you, but for also generations to come, nothing. I think this is, for example, for me, a great indicator of how in this time when we feel lost in the art world, you know, a revision of Marxism is totally needed, and a desire for more socialist tissue for workers and art workers needs to happen. Because I think a lot of people feel lost. I mean, what is the function of art? Who is our audience? Who goes to museums? That's the point, you know, it's just like, it's a divide. It's like, now just like posh people go to museums, right? Or it's been seen by some right wings as very bourgeois, and which it is, and it has become. I mean, there is a total point there. I still believe in art, otherwise I will not do it. I don't believe it in a way that I can give it a certain task or a certain definition. I do believe it as a dialectical activity. I think sometimes we made the mistake to think that art in general, and maybe painting, should communicate. Communicate in a way, let's say, from A to B. I think art, in general, is studying the limitations of our communication. It's in the limits. So what does this mean is the idea that communication and meaning escape our intents, escape our feelings, our experiences. I mean, I don't know how to explain my feeling when I see a genocide, when I see the war. I cannot explain this. Nobody can. But we try to move towards the limit of that experience and try to do something with that incommunicable experience. Because the present is too overwhelming. The present just is. So it's really hard to dissect. And I would like to think that, again, if art is a deep act of self-reflection, it's deep, that's the point. So sometimes I imagine also painting as like, we need like a fire to gather in these incommunicable, overwhelming, deep, sensitive experiences. And that's what the painting object should function as. So for me, the critique of ideology is like a very important part of my work, and I think I tried with all my machines to question that. I really want to understand for myself and for everybody else, why are we becoming the way we are becoming? Why are we not learning from history? Why are we repeating history? And how can we propose alternative system, alternative ideas? How can we escape? How can we have a more creative imagination?